When I was at my peak of my running career, when I was able to run my 2:39 marathon, when I ran my 1:13:39 half marathon, and all the PRs I have from track and cross country, when I was at my fastest, I was also the most injury-prone runner you could imagine. Probably 3 or 4 times a year, I had a major injury where I had to take time off from training and really reduce my ability to achieve even greater things. And one of the things I try to do with strength running, whether we're talking about the strength running website, we're talking about the strength running podcast, or these videos on YouTube, I want runners to avoid the mistakes that I made in my training so that you can ultimately be a more successful runner than I ever was. What I'd like to do in this video is share some of the biggest training mistakes I have made in my career so that you can avoid them and stay healthy. These are big injury risks, and I experience them in my coaching practice. I experience them personally as a runner because I made almost every mistake you can imagine, and I don't want you to make these mistakes as well. So I'm going to share 5 of the most important mistakes you should avoid if you want to stay a healthy runner. Mistake number 1 is to have wild, inconsistent swings in your training volume and in your training intensity. So if you're someone who gets injured frequently, you're probably taking a lot of time off and then rushing to get back into your normal training workload. And that is the problem. That's what I found myself experiencing all the time as a very injury-prone athlete. I would get this niggle or this more serious injury, I would have to take time off, and then this swing in running workload over time would be very consistent. But if we want to stay healthy, our running should be much more consistent than that. If you read the book Run Faster by Brad Hudson, it's one of my favorite running books. He actually talks about in that book how it's not the high mileage or the hard workouts that are the big injury risk. It's not ramping up appropriately to those high mileage level weeks and those hard workouts. And it's also the building process itself that can be challenging from an injury perspective. So the lesson here is to never experience these wild swings in work volume. We always want to be running. We always want to not be too terribly far from the mileage that we know, the mileage that we're comfortable with, and faster workouts. So let's not take extended time off from running more than a week or 2. Let's not avoid faster workouts for more than 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. If you can do that, if you can be strategic with your time off, strategic with your very easy weeks that don't include workouts, your training is going to be much more consistent. Your body is going to get used to that level of work, and you're going to be a much more injury resilient runner. Big injury mistake number 2 is that runners just don't do any hard workouts during the off season or for extended periods of time. And then when they start training for a race, they jump right back into those workouts. This is a particularly challenging consistency problem for the very reason that of all the things that you do within your training, running hard is probably the most risky from an injury perspective. So we can't get too far away from running hard, or getting used to that extra stress is going to be that much more challenging. If you ever take a long time away from running faster workouts, you are effectively allowing your body to become detrained from the stress of running fast and hard. And so we want to avoid that. Even if you've just run a marathon, of course you want to take a couple weeks very easy. You don't really want to run any faster workouts. But once you start feeling more recovered, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that marathon, let's get back into it. Let's start running more faster workouts. They can be relatively easy at first. A very simple fartlek will do, or maybe some marathon pace or tempo pace workouts where you're not really challenging yourself to go to the well. The workouts may not even really be characterized as hard. They are just fast in small doses. That is going to allow your body to get comfortable with speed more regularly so that when you do start adding speed work into your training plan, it is not a novel stress. Your body knows what to do with it, and you're much more likely to stay healthy. This video is sponsored by Inside Tracker, our newest partner for the YouTube channel, and I couldn't be more excited. They are an ethical company. They are a company that I've been using personally for years, and they're one of the most reputable blood testing companies in the country. Inside Tracker tests your blood very simply. They look at over 40 different biomarkers, from stress hormones like cortisol to testosterone levels and vitamin D, also that you know what's going on inside your body. So you can tell if you're undertraining, you're overtraining, you're optimally training, or if you just have any other health issues that might be going on that might be impacting your running. And like I said, I've been using them for years. I've gotten numerous ultimate tests, and I'm about to get my third, and I added on the DNA kit. This is going to be really special for me, just to get a more in-depth look at what's going on inside me so that I know if there are any red flags that I have to address. And that part of the whole procedure is why I love Inside Tracker, because you know what they do? They don't just give you a report showing you how your markers might be in the zone or outside the zone. They tell you how to improve them. So if you are too low or too high with any of these metrics, they give you science-backed ways to improve upon them through diet, exercise, or lifestyle changes. So I'm super happy about this partnership. And if you go to insidetracker.com/strengthrunning, use code strengthrunning, you're gonna get 25% off any test that they have. This is a great offer, and I'm really excited to partner with this company, so I hope you take advantage of it. That's insidetracker.com/strengthrunning, and use code strengthrunning to save 25% off on any test. Injury mistake number 3 is to not run your easy days at a truly easy effort. Now, this is especially important if you are in a period of heavy training. If you're training really hard right now, you're pushing the effort with high mileage, you're pushing the effort with the intensity of your workouts, it's going to be a lot more important to get as much recovery as possible from those short, easy days. And I know easy pace can sometimes be a challenging thing to determine. So instead, I like to tell runners to use the 3 C's. Let's make sure your easy runs are controlled. You don't feel out of control, you're not pushing, you're not flailing. After they're controlled, let's make sure they are comfortable. This is very subjective, but do you feel comfortable when you're out there running? You should be. And finally, let's make sure these easy runs are conversational. I always tell my runners or runners that I'm working with, let's pretend that we are running together and you're telling me a funny story. What kind of pace might that be? Because if we're talking, if we're having a conversation, if we're laughing a little bit because you're telling me something funny, then you probably are not running very hard. And you need to keep that pace very easy so that it can be conversational. If you can follow these 3 C's, then you can rest assured your easy runs are truly easy, and you're getting as much recovery as you need in between those hard days. Our next big injury mistake, one that I have made way too many times in my running career, is thinking I'll be okay and running through a niggle, running through discomfort, or even running through some minor pain. It is rarely a good idea to play with fire in this way and try to push through an injury or push through something that doesn't quite feel right. Instead, I like to use a very simple framework for understanding when it's okay to run through a discomfort and when it's not okay. So if you start a run and you have any sharp, intense, or stabbing pain, that is a no-no. Let's not go for a run that day, because running is likely going to make whatever's bothering you a lot worse. Next, let's make sure that whatever pain you're experiencing, whatever discomfort that you might have, is not getting worse as you run. Because if it's getting progressively worse as you run, minute by minute or mile by mile, that probably means that running is making the problem worse. So we don't want to continue to make this injury more severe than it already is. And then finally, if you're out there running and you have some sort of discomfort and it requires you to change your form, just altering the way your foot strikes the ground or the way that you kind of lift your knees up, whatever it might be, if you are changing your form to accommodate a certain discomfort, what you're essentially doing is giving yourself a self-imposed limp. We don't want this. We do not want to be limping. We don't want to be changing our running form in order to accommodate some pain. All of those are big red flags. And if you don't have any of those, if the pain is minor, if it's more soreness than actual sharp pain, if it gets better as you run or just doesn't get worse, and if you don't have to change your form to accommodate it, then you're probably okay to go for that run. Our final big training mistake that leads to injuries is a lack of strength training. Strength training is the armor that protects you against injuries. So if you are injury prone or you just want to avoid the next injury, then I highly recommend adding some strength training to your program. Now, a lot of what we're talked about is the actual running side of things, making sure that you're consistent, that your training load or your intensity doesn't vary widely month to month or week to week. And we also want to get our pacing right. All those things are really important. And in fact, I would say that your training, the actual structure of your running, is the number one most important strategy you have to stay healthy. But the second most important strategy is strength training. If you're not doing some strength training in your running right now, then I consider it to be playing with fire. You are running on borrowed time. That next injury is just around the corner. And we can not only keep you healthy with more strength training, we can also improve your running form, improve your performances, and allow you to run faster. So there's a lot of very, very good reasons to add strength training to your program if you haven't already. And don't think that you have to get into a gym, you have to go hang out with a bunch of other sweaty people in a confined space. I understand if you're not comfortable with that. You can actually get a lot of work done with some simple bodyweight exercises you can do at home. So I hope all of these suggestions have been helpful for you as you think about your training this year, as you think about the goals that you would like to achieve. Ultimately, achieving whatever goal you have, whether it's your first marathon, a sub-3 marathon, your first ultra marathon, or your first 5K, or maybe a really fast race. Whatever that goal might be, it demands sound training. And if you want to achieve more, if you want to keep progressing and getting better and improve upon your personal bests, we've got to take some new, different steps in our training so that we can get there. So let's focus more on injury prevention by incorporating some of these principles into our training. And if you haven't yet, let's subscribe to the Strength Running channel so you don't miss any of our other videos that are being published soon.